With Battle for Azeroth's preliminary alpha testing period underway, and having been lucky enough to be invited to take part, I thought I'd share my experiences and thoughts thus far. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Melvin, and these are my first impressions of Battle for Azeroth. When I first got access to the alpha, I did what everyone who isn't a major content creator would do. Find someone big who's streaming and try to elbow your way into a group with them, and after providing portals for Towerly, dueling with Asmongold and chasing Bellular around, I actually did some testing. Now, for those who don't know, I'm both a graphic designer and a 3D artist specializing in prop and environment art, and I have to say, both the prop, environment, character and particle artists of all disciplines have raised the bar higher than it's ever been in-game before. The higher resolution albedos, more widely used metallic and ambient occlusion maps, blended textures, higher poly counts, accurate retopos, and denser particles make the game feel more like a modern MMO. The prop art of both Nazmir and Drusvar is incredibly consistent to the theming of the zones, alongside maintaining a robust and brand new colour palette, allowing this new look of paint to gleam on the in-game objects. And with these props, the environment designers did a hell of a job stringing everything together to make the zones incredibly immersive. Both Legion and Warlords of Draenor did a great job of introducing upgrades to the engine, and Battle for Azeroth has an absolute field day with this. Matte painting and both volumetric lighting and fog give environments an ambience that's rarely been achieved in-game before. And the character models in this expansion are some of, if not the highest quality we've seen yet, with more 3D modeling going into what was once flat textures such as cloaks, belts and legs, and building on the expectations both Warlords of Draenor and Legion set. I'm sure you've already scouted out your next transmog in Battle for Azeroth, and it's going to include one of those trench coats. After spending 3 years in uni, I thought it would be worthwhile me putting my music degree to the test, and I put Neil LaCree's new soundtrack and sound direction under the microscope specifically for this reason. When Russell Brower left Blizzard's ranks last year, a shockwave left the community concerned about the quality of the sound moving forward throughout Warcraft. Neil LaCree and his team of sound engineers do not falter. The sheer number of new leitmotifs used in Battle for Azeroth, coupled with the intelligent instrumentation and awareness of thematic design, lend itself to an almost Mists of Pandaria quality. Each zone has a very distinctive timbre, and the inclusion of new leitmotifs that reference older but still relevant leitmotifs is a great nod to the original source material of the Zandalari and Kultirans of yore. You can kinda tell the sound guys locked themselves in the studio for at least a week with as much reference as possible and didn't see the light of day until each zone sounded at least as good as Grizzly Hills, and I look forward to hearing the raid music over the next few years if it holds the bar as high as the zones. Alongside the music, the sound effects and diegetic sound or ambience brings each zone to life. The humming of insect wings, rustling of leaves and croaking of frogs in the outer reaches of Nazmir do a great job of pulling you in, suspending that disbelief. Also, like Legion, there's a lot more voice acting already in this alpha build, and I expect it to be a lot more come release. It's worth mentioning at this stage, everything is subject to change and a number of class specs simply do not function correctly. However, I have checked out my main classes, Monk, Warrior, Warlock and Hunter, and was pleasantly surprised in most cases. Marksmanship hunters feel closer to their tier 18 counterparts, and the new spell effects and thematic changes do a great job of separating them from another guy with a bow who can cast magic. As of right now, the class has an almost frost mage-like feel to it, which is sure to appeal to some. Destruction Warlocks, though currently missing a handful of talents, feel and look incredible. The only downside to playing a Warlock on the alpha is not having green fire, and I cannot wait to wield the new spell effects on my retail Warlock, resplendent in tier 17 Mythic with green fire to boot. Arms Warrior is thick with 2 Cs. Legion was a tumultuous time for the Arms Warrior, and Battle for Azeroth looks to bring the weapon masters back to the top of the pedestal. It's also really special that they now have a top tier talent that changes the way the spec plays based on the weapon you're wielding, in a similar vein to how Guild Wars 2 characters vary wildly in the same class just by changing weapons. This is a risky move by Blizzard to include a talent that does this, and it's pretty impressive. I sincerely hope that they continue this route, as I feel that changing specs, even if slightly, based on the weapons you're wielding is a fantastic idea across the board. Lastly, I spent the most amount of time playing a monk. Some of you may remember the video I made sometime during the Legion Alpha, in which I checked out the class changes and ultimately decided to settle on a monk. Now, I don't want to sound like a hipster, but I mained a monk long before Bellula made it cool, and feel that a lot of the changes in Battle for Azeroth are either brilliant quality of life updates or entirely unnecessary. Having celerity on a different road to Chi Torpedo is something I never thought I'd see, but makes for incredible fun, especially during outdoor content. However, energizing Elixir being nerfed to allow more players to use it optimal makes the elitist in me pretty sad. However, as Whirling Dragon Punch and Serenity both remain on the same tier, the turbulent period of monks using Whirling Dragon Punch ineffectively versus monks who can't line up Serenity with their other cooldowns will continue. It all basically depends on if the DPS potions will actually work with Storm, Earth and Fire this time around. Now, my overall thoughts. This is a surprisingly polished alpha build, albeit the one used on the show floor during BlizzCon. However, it is a great indicator of what's to come. Azerite armor still does nothing. You may gain Azerite, but you can't interact with it. The stat squish is kind of implemented in the battle zones, but not implemented outside, as Towelie and I found out trying to 2-man Blackrock Foundry Mythic. Stuff still broke. Real fucking broke, but it's early days. Yet, we're likely to gain access to the next 2 zones very soon, and maybe even more dungeons. With these, it's pretty likely we'll have access to the data mined Dark Iron Dwarves and Zandalari, and maybe even see the next cast of allied races begin to be implemented, such as the Upright and Brown Orcs, as these maps are appearing in the patches. I'm impressed so far, and will definitely be playing and testing more content throughout the alpha in comparison to what I did in Legion, which was kind of just test the class changes and then piss off. Now, lastly, some speculation. I'm not going to go off the chain like Pyromancer or Akalon and say that Bolvar is going to do a line of variants, Ashes during a party with Enzoth, or anything like that. However, I do have some ideas as to what we can expect. It's looking likely that Battle for Azeroth is going to be the longest expansion we've ever had to date, and that's a pretty good thing, for a few reasons. Now that the orbital Ian Hazzikostas canon has taken his throne fully as the head of development, and him holding the reins from the inception of Battle for Azeroth, we can take what we know about his design philosophy during Legion and apply it to the new expansion to give us an idea about longevity. We know that Legion was announced at Gamescom, yet the first patch and its contents was announced at BlizzCon before the game was even out. We know that's not going to happen this time around, but we do know that Ian likes to keep us on our toes with upcoming content. He wants us to continue the grind because we've had a peek of what's over the hill. A big indicator of this is how in Legion there was this whole mindset of, I need to main a single spec throughout to make sure I'm cutting edge enough to be accepted into content. Even now, with the various catch-up mechanics, it still kinda stings whenever you get a new class to 110. In contrast, throughout Battle for Azeroth, we're being enticed to level up alternate characters as allied races to unlock heritage armor already before the expansion's even out, and I ain't paying 40 quid for that, fuck no. If we already have 4 allied races now, there's at least 2 at some point during the beginning of the expansion, presumably as part of the first raid tier perhaps, or just before, then it's safe to assume Ian is going to dangle an even bigger carrot on a stick to make us level up and gear alt midway through the expansion multiple times. And how can that be done? Tons of content, tons of time to achieve it, and great rewards for achieving it. Imagine getting your main to 120, geared, ready to kick off the first raid, and finding out that those Dark Iron Dwarves you really want are all of a sudden available. You're going to want to level from 20 to 120, gear up and prepare for raiding at some point, and by bloating the expansion with variations of content from Islands, Mythic Plus, Warfronts, etc., alongside patch content similar to the Chromie scenario, new time walking and more, I think we're going to be deep into battle for Azeroth in at least 3 years' time, all playing our Totolan Hunters, Valkyrian Rogues and Narga Priests. Or at least I hope. Thank you all for sticking around and hearing my thoughts about the expansion. I know it's been a long while since I made a video in this vein, and since I've been cuddling up to a bunch of other content creators, it's worthwhile me giving them a special thanks. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment and subscribe, or don't. I don't give a fuck. Have a great day.